In regard to Confucian, the very recent past and the present are, of course, no exceptions. I strongly believe that a number of current theoretical explorations will turn out to be passing fancies, and I fervently hope that some others will survive. Since it serves no purpose to stress subjectivity into outright prejudice, I shall increasingly try to use discretion the more I near the present, rather than attempt an up-to-date assessment of developments on all fronts. A more important reason for augmented selectivity is less a matter of choice than of necessity. The need for finding ways of coping with the outpouring of publications, which begins to reach flood level somewhere in the later 1950s. I can well appreciate John Kenneth Galbraith's recent comments regarding his efforts at writing a history of economics. As one approaches the present, one is filled with a sense of hopelessness. In a year, and possibly even in a month, there is no more economic comments in the supposedly serious literature than survives from the whole of the 1,000 years commonly denominated as the Middle Ages. Anyone who claims to be familiar with it all is a confessing liar. As to physics, let a few numbers serve to illustrate its growth during the period embraced in this book. In 1899, the American Physical Society was founded by 38 physicists. In 1900, the worldwide number of academic physicists of all ranks are about 1,000. Among these, the number of senior faculty in theoretical physics was 8 in Germany, 2 in the United States, Gibbs at Yale, and Pupin at Columbia, 1 in Holland, Lawrence, and 9 in the British Empire. Maxwell's chair at Cambridge has been in experimental physics. The emergence of theoretical physics as a semi-autonomous discipline is a 20th century phenomenon. Kirchhoff made fundamental contributions to experimental as well as theoretical physics. So did J.J. Thomson, Maxwell, Boltzmann, Einstein, and Bohr published experimental results of their own. In the 20th century, Rutherford and Fermi were the leading representatives of this vanishing tradition. Today, the American Physical Society counts over 36,000 members. It's one of the 9 member societies of the American Institute of Physics, founded in 1931 for the purpose of coordinating various societies whose interests are primarily in the field of physics and for the purpose of supporting their publications. The American Physical Society has since become a conglomerate of divisions, including one of particles and fields, the 2 main topics of this book, which was founded in 1967 and which now has more than 2,500 members. The American Institute of Physics currently publishes about 40 journals, 17 of which are exclusively devoted to translations of articles from the Soviet Union, 1 to articles originally in China. The member societies publish in all some 20 additional journals. For present purpose, the most important American journal is the Physical Review. Volume 1 came out in 1894, is 480 pages long and contains 20 articles. In 1950, 4 volumes appeared with 447 articles, on 3,167 pages. For fair comparison, I have excluded the letters to the editor and the abstracts of papers presented at physical society meetings. In 1950, closely published together with the articles because there were no letters and abstracts in 1894, while they were published separately by 1980, my third year of comparison. In that year, there were 2 volumes, 29,213 pages, 3,403 articles. Since 1970, every volume of the Physical Review has appeared in 4 sub-volumes A to D: Nuclear Physics, which gave birth to particles and fields. D, only some 50 years ago, is now published separately as C. In 1980, Part D alone contained 6,651 pages, 793 articles. The numbers quoted in the preceding 2 paragraphs refer exclusively to the United States, since only for that region did I know how to make comparisons that spans the century. In respect of the most recent 20-odd years, I can add some worldwide figures, however. That period witnessed the creation of central repositories for preprints, presently the only form of rapid communication. One of these, the Slack preprint library, distributed every week a bulletin listing documents received by title, authors, and institution. The annual yield comprising articles, letters, and reviews was 4,100 in 1975, 6,100 in 1984. One sees that to speak of a flood is no exaggeration. In the course of this century, there have been radical changes not only in the content of physical theory and the style of experimentation, but also in the ways science is communicated. Physics has become increasingly fragmented by the creation of specialities within specialities. The phenomenon is universal. There was a time, not long ago, when the existence of 2 cultures are sufficient cause for complaint, if we only had it so good now. As the numbers indicate, at the time of writing, one would have to digest 17 publications per day every day of the year in order to claim familiarity with the whole body of high-energy physics literature. That, fortunately, is not a requirement for being a productive particle physicist. Attend a conference now and then, browse through frequently appearing comprehensive summary reports, read the Slack list of titles, and above all, be well locked into the strongly developed modern oral tradition, and one gets quite far. This means of keeping abreast were likewise indispensable to the present enterprise. Yet the double predicament remained of distilling a cohesive account of the post-war era from information that is in flux as a content and in explosion as to volume. How to build the bridge between Röntgen, who did his experiment single-handedly without yet knowing that electromagnetic radiations cannot vibrate in their direction of motion, and the UA1 experiments executed by a multinational consortium in response to predictions of a highly sophisticated relativistic quantum field theory. The best way that I could devise was to divide this book into two parts. The first, Wyman's attempt at a history of the period 1895 to 1945. The second, Wyman's memoirs of the post-war era. I believe that other members of my own and later generations should be heard before the time will be ripe for an historical assessment of the most recent period. A number of them have already gone on record. Others will presumably follow before long. Being one of the above, I consider Part 2 as a contribution to the pool of information from which a history will have to be discerned in later times. Inevitably, the styles of the two parts are distinct. Part 1 contains the main thrust of the present work. Among the topics discussed in Part 2, several that have reached a fair level of maturity are treated in excellent and easily accessible books and reports, which are essentially contemporaneous with the present volume. I shall therefore often content myself with brief indications, after which I direct the readers to the literature, especially to such writings as give ample references to original contributions. The number of pages devoted to one or another subject is therefore not necessarily proportional to their relative importance. As part of the homework for Part 2, I have paid particular attention to the published reminiscences of others. I shall not discuss this, but note that I do not agree with all opinions expressed therein, nor do these always agree among themselves. In the sources to the appropriate chapters, I have recorded references to all reminiscences known to me, in the hope that this may facilitate others' studies. In the remainders of this chapter consists of a non-technical account of the main themes of this book, interspersed with further general comments. Those who prefer to dig in at once may like to turn immediately to Chapter 2. Note, a further guide to the contents of this volume is found in the appendix.